How's it going, Raiders? My name is Ryan, and this is TRC episode 27. On today's show, we will be talking the Shaman class with our friend Marty from the land of Denmark. No Oreo this week, but we'll get into that. So without further ado, Tanks, full timer on you.
The heroes have made it to the glorious finale.
Alright, here we go, guys. Set up your chairs, focus up, let's do this. Alright, guys, get buffed up.
Okay, so we want to soak the annihilations,
Get your shit together.
then we want to target the annihilator,
Put them big girl panties on.
move back to avoid damage from eradication,
I think I've disconnected.
then we target the decimator,
Can we pull already?
then we target boss.
I hope you can swim in molten lava.
Let's kill this dragon.
Welcome back, Raiders. As I've already said, my name is Ryan, and you are listening to the Raiders Confessional podcast, where we talk all things in-game PvE content-wise in the world of Azeroth. Joining me today, as always, from the land of Denmark is one Martin Larson. What is up, my friend Marty?
Hello, everything good here. How you doing?
I'm good, man. Just trying to stay dry. We had, in 2 hours last night, we had 10.5 inches of rain where I'm at. Yeah, so a lot of flooding in the area, whatnot. So, one entrance of my little subdivision where I live is closed due to a bridge being damaged. But, yeah, it's been a little crazy. It feels a little reminiscent of being back where I was in Texas. A lot of flooding there, so.
Okay, it's been the opposite here in Denmark. We have had like so much warmth and so much dryness that it's actually at the moment forbidden to use fire outdoor. No
Oh, yeah.
campfires, no nothing. That's how dry it has been. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm a little familiar with that as well from where I was at in Texas, so that's always fun. A lot of dry heat. Speaking of countries, just want to throw an FYI out there. Our friend Oreo will not be joining us this week. I know you were gone last week. Oreo will be gone this week. Oreo is enjoying himself for Canada Day. I'm sure he's drunk, possibly halfway into a bottle of maple syrup. At least that's how I want to imagine it. But we want to wish him well and have some fun this weekend, time off, and enjoy your national holiday there, friend.
Happy Canada Day.
Right, yeah. I guess what happy Canada Day to your co-host over at the Blue Recluse, his better half. She's Canadian, is she not?
She says she is, yeah. So I guess it's true. I haven't checked, but she sounds a little bit Canadian as well sometimes.
All right.
So I think it's true.
She throw a lot of sorries out there.
Yeah. I'm on that. A boat.
A boot. Yeah. So, yeah, no, just wanted to say well wishes to Oreo and whatnot, and we're glad you're here, and hopefully next week we'll have both of you guys back, and we will conclude the last two classes and the final episode of BFA before we do one more episode where we reveal which mains we will be playing. And then we will also on that episode announce some of the upcoming interviews that we have with some exciting groups before we go into BFA. But yeah, so before we get into today, right? Yeah. Before we get into things today, I did see something interesting via a YouTube video from Kalani. Did you see this about the Mythic Plus changes going into BFA with the loot?
I have not, so
Okay.
I'm looking forward for you to enlighten me because I have been road tripping and going back to my parents this weekend and have been away from internet as well because my parents live in the middle of nowhere with limited internet access. I mean, we could just about run Pokemon Go, so yeah, that's that's what we've been doing.
Fair enough. As per the video, I looked on MMO. I couldn't find anything. I've been a little busy and crunched for time myself with my new job and everything. So I do plan on today after the show doing some more extensive research. But as of right now, the word on the street is that in Mythic Plus and BFA, you can receive up to 3 items of loot in your chest at the end of the week. And those 3
At the end of
items,
the week,
yes. So the chest you get at the end of the week can have up to 3 items. It can be 1, it can be 2, it can be 3. You will not be able to get Azerite pieces of gear from running a Mythic Plus. So that one chest that's at the end of your Mythic Plus when you finish will have loot in it, obviously, potentially. But that loot will not be Azerite armor. If you want Azerite armor for Mythic Pluses, it can only come from your end of the week chest upon
Yeah.
server reset.
I already know how it's going to play out right now. There will be a certain group of people who will be saying, the past 10 weeks, I have only got one item every week. This RNG is crap.
Yep. Yep. It's nothing we haven't heard in the past, but we talked about this on the Blizzard Umbrella with Michael a little bit, and Michael seemed to reflect my sentiments of wishing for there to be more segregation between Mythic Pluses and rating. And for me, that translates into I wish that the gear would not translate from one environment to the other. You know, it's really frustrating to be a Mythic Raider and to be trying to kill XYZ boss, and you know you have a group of people that are doing really well, they're all good players, the content's just hard and you can't get the gear, and then all of a sudden you turn around and your buddy who's just running 15s that, you know, people who can't seem to even get, you know, down the first boss in Mythic are doing, that are in heroic guilds, and they have better gear than you. You know, that doesn't feel good. PvPers currently, you don't see the item levels that you see from PvE players with the PvP players, and yet they still are able to immerse themselves into their respective in-game content just fine. You know, it's still just as competitive. It's still, you know, just as prestigious with, you know, whoever has the highest item level, whoever has the achievements, whatever. And I wish to see more of that between the three different pieces of content, be it PvP, Mythic Plus, or rating. You know, obviously some things are okay to translate over, in my opinion. It shouldn't be completely walled off. But like for me, if they removed Azerite pieces altogether from everything but rating, I'd be okay with that. You know,
Yeah.
not to say
I
that
only
that will
think
happen, but
no, because I only think if you did that right now, that would be a huge. I think there's a pretty large group of Mythic Plus players now that would be maybe a little bit upset about that because they also want their toys, right?
yeah, and I know that was one of the big arguments with Legion was that a lot of the Mythic Plus players didn't want to do rating. They just wanted to stay in Mythic Plus, but depending on the class and the spec they were playing, they needed to do the rating content to get those set bonuses that were, you know, pertinent for doing well in higher Mythic Pluses. So
Yeah.
I don't know the answer. I do, however, want to see a little bit more segregation than we're currently seeing on beta, and potentially in BFA, from the one piece of content to the next, or maybe even do it so that rating, you know, the gear you get from one to the next is reflected based on the difficulty. You know, obviously Mythic rating is one of the hardest things to do in the game, and so, you know, I don't know. I don't, like I said, I don't have the
Yeah,
answer,
I,
but
I think I, th- I think it's a difficult balance to find, right? Because you still want people who play Mythic Plus to actually want to do Mythic Plus, but you don't want to piss off the raiders who spend a lot of time raiding. And yeah, it's a difficult balance that I don't really have like a solution, one solution that fits all. So yeah, I don't know. I think Blizzard still have to experiment a little bit to figure out how that balance works.
yeah, well, and it's like I always tell Dusty, you know, we're gamers, we can find anything to complain about, but truthfully, right now in Legion, going into BFA, the game is one of the healthiest states we've ever seen it in.
Yeah, have
So
to agree.
we don't have a whole lot to complain about, but we sure as hell going to complain
No,
a lot about the
we
little
will
we do,
try
right?
and do our best. I
Uh,
mean, I think the game is in a good state right now because we just it's like I don't know an hour ago we did the latest Blue Recluse episode where we talked about stuff to do in game, and because I this week I actually one thing I managed to do was to log in just to do the last story bit where the weapon is getting boosted, and I did some quick spring cleaning as well and cleaned out my quest log and realized that I actually have this quest to do brawler skill stuff as well that I haven't done yet. So I mean, there's so much stuff to do in game if you really want to explore everything. So yeah, I think the game in Legion is in a really good spot,
yeah.
and I hope they continue that line in BFA. And it looks like they do because there's two new things going in the game as well with the Isle expeditions and the war fronts, and yeah, I think it will be another expansion with lots to do.
That reminds me, I should go do my Brawlers Guild. But yeah, other than that,
See?
yeah, right. I've done about 75% of it on a couple of characters now. I just always get distracted and forget to go back.
Yeah.
But I did manage to get my Werebear and my Prop Paladin Mage Towers done.
Ooh.
I know Michael's been working on his, so and I know he and our past co-host Dan are both in the chat right now. So hello to both of you. And Michael, yes, depending on which way you argue, I reflected your sentiment. We'll give you credit there. But yeah, other than that, I haven't been doing a lot of raiding other than just kind of some casual fun stuff as we build out our Mythic roster for BFA. And
How's it going with that? How's the guild going? I
it's
actually made a character on your server
oh yeah,
on
okay.
US side. It's level 1. Have a good progress. I have a good feeling about being raid ready. So
Yeah, no, man, you have to let me know when you're on next time. I'll toss you a G invite. But no, it's going well. I think right now, last I looked at the spreadsheet, we have roughly 27 people on the roster, I think. But as you and everyone else knows, a lot of those people will probably drop out between now and probably the second tier rating. So we'll continue to work on building the roster out and fine tuning and getting the people we need in places we need them. So. But that's going well. We're managing to get anywhere from 2 to 5 people a week, so we're doing good.
yeah, good. I mean, our rotation is really really good to have. Like we have like a healing rotation, for instance, because we have too many healers. But it's better to we find it's better to have too many healers, and everybody knows from the beginning that sometimes they will have to be on the bench because we all know that there is that random week where 3 healers last minute decides to I'm going camping or whatever.
Right.
So then it's better to actually have a few people that you can just put in that you have extra to put in the roster and still go, because if healers are missing, then there's like 17 other people who are sitting there and can't go anywhere.
Yeah, that was one of the things. I got a message today from one of my officers, and she comment was, "Oh, I've got a Mistweaver monk," and I'm like, "That's healer number 7." Like, but
I
like you
actually
said,
think we have 7.
yeah.
6. What do we have? I have 6 healers. I'm a little bit unsure. No, actually,
See, and that's what worries
seven,
me.
seven, 7 does sound like a high number, actually.
Yeah, well, and that's kind of what worries me is not necessarily the number, but is kind of getting past that mentality that a lot of people have is they just don't like feeling like they're being sat for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And so like I said, trying to get to that point where we fine tune enough that people understand that everybody's going to be rotating with the exception of a few people like the main tanks and the raid leader. But
Yeah. I mean, it can work. It worked for us because I don't know. I just think that we just really tried to make sure that everybody knew that there's a chance that you might sit out and things like that. And I mean, most of the time people understand it because they know that it's about the kill and the team and I mean it's also a good way to figure out if people are team players or not, because if that guy who is there and he's like, if I'm going to be sat on the bench, then I just don't want to be here. Well, then bye. Then you're not a team player, and then you're probably not what we want in the guild anyway. So does that as well. Even
eh,
it can seem harsh, but I mean that's just as long as Mythic plus Mythic difficulty will be a set 20 person people amount of people you need, then that's has to be the reality, because
right.
people fluctuate in and out. That's just how it happens. So
Well, and even me, I'm gonna have nights where I'm gonna want to go to the local baseball game with my girlfriend, or maybe the only night they're in town
yeah,
for that series
exactly.
or whatever. Everybody needs their nights
Yeah.
off, whatever. It's kind of one thing I always try to tell people. None of us are paying our bills with this game right now, and none of us
Yeah.
are Mythic race raiders, so
Mm.
it's okay. Like as long as you show up when you do show up, ready to take this seriously and progress, like, we'll be good. We'll have a good time.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah.
but
And you can also do stuff like, for instance, on what was it? It was on Coven, for instance, where we decided to bench most of the melee and just bring in all the dot classes we had and all the ranged, and I mean
yeah,
it we downed Coven in a pretty fast pace at that because of that. So I
hmm
mean, you have the possibility to try out things as well and get that first kill under your belt, because as soon as people start to get the tactics, then you can switch people around and everybody gets the kill in the end.
Dear Blizzard, please do not design any more fights that favor a heavy range dot composition. Thank you.
That will always be that one fight.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, and the thing I cannot seem to remember for the life of me is in my mind, I seem to remember in the past. It always seemed to flip flop. There was that couple of fights that very much favored range, and a couple of fights that very much favored melee. But I cannot remember when the switch happened. But do you remember a single fight as of late where it favored melee?
Not really, because I actually have been thinking about it as well. That I remember the times when melee was the bomb and everybody wanted to go melee because they had no downtime. So they were just so good, and at some point the switch happened, and I don't really remember when and how it happened, but it's true. I've been thinking a little bit about it as well, and I don't have an answer for you. Sorry.
Well, with that being said, my question to you before we jump into shamans for today: how excited are you? I mean, we're getting close, man. We're getting really close.
We're getting real close, and I am starting to get excited. As I've been saying the last few times, doing the research and starting to play through some of the zones that got me hyped. I recently got the book as well, Before the Storm, and
Yep.
I'm halfway through that. And I mean, the only thing that I have right now is I could really just use some time, but that's more because of all the things in my personal life that's going on right now. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to that 1 week in August where I have the whole week off. Everything is going. I told my girlfriend that this is what I'm going to be doing this week. So if you have work to do, save it for then, because that's when you won't see me.
So get this. I don't know if I've said this on this show yet, but I actually made plans to go camping with my girlfriend's brother and his significant other before we even knew the launch date for BFA, and it just so happens to be August 17th and 18th, which is that first weekend after BFA launches. So we'll have that whole week when launch, and then right away, here I am, GM, trying to build out a Mythic raid roster, and I have to take off already. But I did tell everybody in my life, listen, here's the deal. Those 2 weeks after August 13th, with the exception of that weekend, leave me alone. You know, obviously barring an emergency, do not knock on my door. Do not come talk to me. I am busy. So, but yeah. So, with that being said, I think we've kind of bullshitted enough now. But you want to talk shamans?
Sure, let's do it.
Cool. Before we jump into it today, because we don't have two classes, we will not have a midway FYI break. I would just like to remind everybody, like we always do, those of us here on the show, we are not experts. We are not theory crafters. We are not Discord class, moderators of any capacity. We are not experts. We do not advertise as such. What we do advertise is that we are players just like the rest of you. It just so happens to be that the three of us on this show currently are Mythic Raiders. And so what we do say, just want to remind everybody, is largely opinion based. How we feel about things. It may not necessarily reflect what is actually going on or how things may feel to you. So please don't hold a flame to us. If you disagree, that's fine. You're more than welcome to email us, message us on Twitter, whatever. Let us know. We definitely foster that type of disagreement communication. That's part of the reason why we do the show. We like to debate these things, talk about the things, and kind of approach it from a more of a philosophical standpoint. But again, just a friendly reminder, we're not experts. Please do not hold us to that standard. And we certainly won't do that to you. So, and also I did want to remind everybody that right now in Legion, I currently main a 975 Mythic Shaman Elemental as my spec. I do play other specs, so today's show is a little kind of near and dear to me. This is my class.
Close to heart.
Yeah, and so I'm very familiar with all three classes in Legion. I've played all three. I've played two of the three specs on beta. I have not done the resto stuff because I'm primarily concerned with the melee stuff. So today I will be less in the dark than I have been in past episodes. With that being said, let's jump into Elemental, and I will start talking from there. But yeah, Elemental. It is the Master of Elements class from afar. It is a ranged DPS class. It is a builder spender with Maelstrom as their resource. The class builds Maelstrom through various spells in order to dump said Maelstrom via two spells, be it Earthquake or Shock. one being single target, one being AoE. Depending on the situation, you'll use one versus the other. I gotta say, man, for me, this class feels very weak compared to Legion. I know a lot of classes feel weak compared to your mains on Legion, but this one especially. I don't know if it's just because I do play it so extensively on live. But so like right now for me, single target strength I have them listed as medium. I know the rotation. I know how the spells work. I parse fairly well on live, and I don't know. It just didn't feel it on beta. So I listed their single target strength as medium. Their cleave strength is medium. You're not going to see their cleave strength like you would with other dot based classes or classes that have specific spells for cleave situations. This class doesn't typically shine until the heavier or higher mob count AoE situations. So their AoE strength is still listed as high. I noticed it was weird. In between 3 and 5 mobs, there were other classes that were kind of doing more damage than me, but once you got above the 5 mob range, and especially if I talented into the Stormkeeper talent, it was kind of nutty how much my AoE would just jump above everybody else's. So I think this class is gonna be one of those ones where the more mobs, it's almost gonna be an exponential growth, or it's gonna feel like an exponential growth in numbers. So AoE strength is high, especially in sustained higher mob count situations. Target swapping, I have them listed as medium just because they do have 1 dot. Flame Shock. A lot of your damage, be it procs or damage modifiers, is going to be centered around that Flame Shock being present on the mob.
And it's on a cooldown now, right?
It
it's
is.
A bit longer cooldown. It's on the global cooldown now on live, right? And going into the BFA, it will actually have a small cooldown.
Yeah, so it's on the global cooldown, like you said in live. Going into BFA, it's going to be I don't remember the exact number, but I think it was like a 3 to 5 second cooldown. Basically, what that does is it prevents you from multi-dotting very easily. Which I kind of see Blizzard's point with that, because if you have mobs that it's not necessarily important to kill them, but you can get your dots up on them and pad, so to speak. You had situations with a Shaman, you could just throw out 5 Flame Shocks and you'd have instant cast Lava Burst for days. And so it's not as easy to do that. I was trying to do it and I was having a little bit of success, but I could totally see where, when going through the theory crafting and talking to these class discords, they're probably going to advertise that it's not worth your time to keep multiple Flame Shocks up. But again, without seeing their number crunching and whatnot, it's yet to be seen whether they're going to advise that or not. AoE strength. We already talked AoE strength. Target swapping. We already talked that. Mobility. This class had Gust of Wind gutted from them. It doesn't feel good. I know they have Ghost Wolf, which most people like. Quit crying. You have speed boost anytime you want it. Just because you can use Ghost Wolf in any environment, whereas I think in past you can only use it in outdoor environments. But like for me and my Shaman, there were a lot of times, especially in Mythic times, where I wanted to get out of mechanic, but I wanted to reduce my movement time so I could get back to DPSing right away. I wouldn't even worry about Ghost Wolf. I just Gust of Wind where I needed to go, and I had very, very little to no downtime. So I found myself.
I love that spell.
Right, and so right now in beta, I found myself a lot of times. I specifically moved my healing wave to that keybind, so that if I accidentally press it, I didn't accidentally use a cooldown. But I did find myself healing myself a lot. Because I was trying to move and get around with Gust of Wind and it wasn't there. So I've listed their mobility. I've actually dropped their mobility down to a medium to high, just because they still do have that Ghost Wolf, and depending on talents, they can make their Ghost Wolf faster or whatever. They can take their group speed boost one, their totem. I forget the name of it. I always forget it even on live. But anyways, DPS cooldowns. So they're still going to have their Ascendants, they're still going to have their Stormkeeper, and they're still going to have their Ice Fury. Those are all talents, 2 of which the Ascendants and Stormkeeper are on the same row. Ice Fury is on a separate row. So in Legion, Ice Fury and Ascendants would be on the same row. And so you had Ice Fury builds and you had Ascendants builds depending on how you wanted to play the game. And so now you can actually do both. But I don't like it because Stormkeeper to me should be baked in. That's the one spell they moved to a talent that I thought should have stayed baked in. That was that class's answer to movement situations. Gotta move. I don't have any instant cast procs. That's all right. If you know the fight, you can prep your Stormkeeper. Even though Lightning Bolt is your filler spell, it still allows you to keep damage rolling. So I didn't really like that, but I have listed as a DPS cooldown now because it is a talent and it is on a 1 minute cooldown. Utility. This class, no matter what their damage is, no matter what spec you're playing, has phenomenal utility. They're just the tool belt class is what I call them. They're Bob the Builder. Bloodlust, obviously, short cooldown interrupts. And so what I mean by that is most of the time your range, you're going to have 30 to 45 seconds. I actually don't remember the number, but they have longer cooldowns on their interrupts. However, Shamans, no matter what spec they're in, have a 12-second cooldown interrupt, which is fairly short. And so even when I was playing Elemental on live in Legion, I did find myself in a lot of situations where they were utilizing me for my shorter cooldown interrupts, but being able to stay at a range. So certain fights, so maybe I'd run off with the tank and everybody else would stay on one target, and I would basically help the tank with interrupts because I could stay a little bit further back. They have Hex, they have their stuns, they have their knockbacks, they have their Purge, their Dispel, their off heals. This class just has a lot of answers when it comes to utility, so their damage can be a little bit weak, but I can tell you right now, at least I will probably likely as a GM and an officer of a guild, I would like to see at least one DPS shaman in our composition, if not just one shaman via a restoration shaman. But I would like to see at least one DPS shaman just because this class offers so much utility.
I would really love, I don't know how you would do it because people are always so focused on numbers, but I would love to try to see at some point where the focus got a little bit away from numbers, unless you're really, I mean, if you're doing progression rating, sure, you need the numbers because you're already low geared anyway. But I would love people to think about utility and things like that as well, because it is sometimes to me a little, at least it's a little bit exhausting to just look at numbers, numbers, numbers,
Right.
numbers.
Well, and that's part of the problem, Marty, because a lot of the Mythic races guilds, they're able to play their class at such a level, they do focus more on utility. They would bring rogues despite the fact they weren't the highest damage because of their immunity. So they'd bring mages, whatever. But for those of us that are in groups that don't have every single player able to parse orange on every single fight, you have to prioritize. And I'm with you though. I'm absolutely with you, and I'd like to see Blizzard make a situation where all groups can focus more on utility and composition versus can you do the numbers. But
I don't know how to do it, so.
Oh yeah, sorry, Michael just informed me I need to update this. Apologies, Michael. I always forget to do this one. I have the stream title wrong.
Ooh.
But anyway, so I fixed it. So for me, their survivability I've listed as low to medium. They have a couple of answers now that they didn't have in Legion that were in past expansions, like they brought Urshan Shield back and stuff like that. So their survivability will go up a little bit if you talent into it. But baseline survivability, this class is still very squishy. They have an immunity in terms of their Ankh, but it's on a very long cooldown that doesn't reset with the fight. It doesn't reset.
They have the damage reduction, don't they?
They have Astral Shift, right? But it's just this class, when you compare its survivability to other classes, even people of lesser armor types, it's just not there. That was one of the reasons you didn't see a lot of DPS shamans outside of maybe one in a lot of progression guilds. And I don't understand that. I've never understood why a cloth class will have more survivability than a leather or mail or plate class. That should never be the case. But for me, this class still feels low to medium survivability baseline wise. So yeah, I don't really know what else to say about that. General feel, the rotation is still very easy compared to a lot of other classes, in my opinion, and it flows nicely. The builder spenders, keeping your dots up, using things as they come off cooldown like your levers, like that all stuff seems to kind of fit nicely into what feels to be a rotation. But it feels very slow right now, and so I will say it feels very lacking. It feels behind. It doesn't seem to have the numbers like other classes do currently. But I am hopeful, based on my experience currently in Legion, what I do know about the Shaman class, that as they gain more secondary stats, you'll see this class really start to pick up on its viability in raid comps. So,
yeah. I mean, I've played Elemental a little bit on live as well, because Elemental is one of the specs that I consider for BFA. And I have to agree with you that as soon as I got into the beta, it feels slow. But I haven't really played it at max level, and I don't really know how it will evolve, because we all know that when you start out and where you end, it's completely different. But right now, in the beginning, I felt like it was really, really slow, and I didn't have a problem killing mobs or things like that. It just felt a little bit slow and boring.
Yeah. So yeah, that actually surprises me with Elemental, because right now on live it's a little bit flip flop from there. So I was very taken aback when I tried Elemental on beta, and the few times I've actually played it on a couple of different iterations. I played it very early on when it was very, very haste, overabundant. Even though you didn't have the secondary stats, the class just you had Maelstrom for days. Earthquake was still in its iteration where it drained Maelstrom as you casted it. And so as long as you could generate Maelstrom while it was going, you could keep it up for periods of time, and it's not the case anymore. So I just Elemental does not feel like it does on live, and it makes me a little bit sad, but hopefully things will get better for that class in BFA. But hey, you want to talk some restoration?
Sure, let's do it.
All right, let's talk resto.
Going from something that feels a little bit unsatisfactory to something that feels pretty good. Uh, the Shamans hasn't changed. It's the AoE healing masterclass with lots of utility, as well as you already mentioned. So it has lots of AoE potential and a huge kit to perform different roles. Single target strength, it seems medium to strong, especially, again, I think it's one of those cases where if you talent into it, then you can get a decent single target healer out of it. It's not the main focus though, but they can do some good things. The cleave healing is strong, together with the AoE healing is strong as well. They have healing rain to throw down on dangerous spots, and some chain heals to do the rest. Instant spot heals, they can dish out some fairly quick spot healing if they need to. Again, if you talent into it, then they can perform decently. So overall, I think it's a decent healer all the way around, basically. Mobility, again, we don't have what's it called?
Gust of wind.
Gust of wind anymore, yeah. Which it saddens me, because I really liked that ability. It was so much fun to just fly around and fly where you needed to be, and things like that. So I'm quite sad that they put that away, but they still have the Ghost Wolf. They can get around fairly quick, and as a healer, you also have Spirit Walker's Grace, where you can actually run and cast at the same time. Something that every holy priest is envious about. So yeah, it still feels good to just run around and throw out your biggest heals while you're on the move. Healing cooldowns, it's all the usual suspects. Nothing has changed here. They have the healing tide totem, Spearling totem. They can talent into Ascendance, Cloud, and Cloudburst totem. So nothing too much have changed here. They can talent into having more cooldowns and be that, again, something holy priest will be envious about. So many talented options here, and so many cooldowns. I remember a small quick tale from when we did progression rating. I can't remember the boss right now, but I just remember that we had like one healer who couldn't make it this week, and so I was talking to my Shaman healer, and she was like, well, I can just talent into this, and then I can cover this ability that we need to heal up. And I was like, all right, then we only need something for this last thing. And she said, well, I can just talent into that as well. And I was like, Jesus Christ, how many healing cooldowns do you have? So yeah, when it comes to utility, Shamans are amazing. So I would definitely, if you can get your hands on a good restoration shaman, get one ASAP. And utility-wise, it's the same as you just mentioned: Bloodlust, and Ancestral Protection Totem, which is a talent in Balras. You have the Hex, you have Windshear, which is the interrupt on a low cooldown. So that's they can do so many things. Again, survivability. It's decent. It's not the best, but as a healer, you at least have the ability to throw like an instant heal in yourself and things like that when things go wrong. So it's decent. It's not the best. So again, the general feel is, again, I haven't played it on max level. I'm still only testing out like in the beginning areas and the first few dungeons and stuff like that, and it feels a bit slow. But I think that's my comment to everything we have gone through throughout this whole series so far. So I hope it's just a case of it's low level, low geared, and so on. But overall, it feels really, really good. Likelihood to be a main is high. I really like restoration shamans. I have never raided on a restoration shaman, so I would like to try that out. So it's really high. And I also like that you can switch into DPS, you can switch gears if you want to, with both ranged or melee if you want to. So yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, no, it's the one spec I have yet to play on beta of the Shaman class. I've played it quite a bit on live. I am a Shaman, so especially on a lot of nights when I want to just knock out my quick 15 for the week or do my random heroic, I've healed a few raids when people have been gone.
Mm.
Like you said, man, it's a class that has an answer for everything. It does feel good. You won't always see the throughput that you'll see with other classes, so you may not always
No.
be the top of the meters, barring fights that do favor chain heal. But yeah, man, I was watching a video the other day of Method actually ranking healers, and Shaman was not ranked the highest. Monk actually was, but when they talked about when you look at each class individually, this is how we would rank the classes. But when we consider what we would bring to raid, Monk was not one of them, and Shaman was because of the utility. It's like despite the fact that Shamans may not be able to put out we'll use Legion numbers right now, the 3 million HPS that a Monk can put out. Again, hypothetical. They can only put out 2 million. It doesn't matter. 2 million is more than sufficient to get past the fight. Plus, they offer the utility, making the fight more easy. It's a no-brainer. I'm going to bring Shaman every single time.
Yeah.
So,
And also, I'm always of the unless your progression, like hardcore progression rating, then I would always say bring what you find fun. And even in Mythic Plus, for instance, because in Legion I played a Holy Priest, and it's not normally something you would bring to Mythic Plus if you just wanted to get a quick random 15 going with random people. Then you would probably go after something like a Druid or something, right? But I mean, we were in this. We were the same 5 people playing together, and we were just used to each other and how they were used to how I healed. I was used to how they tanked and how they did the DPS. So you can make it work, and we did plus 15s very easily. So as long as you're a good group who can play together and who can communicate, the class and the spec doesn't matter too much. Of course, there's always these situations where, oh, this would be so much easier if I was a resto druid, for instance, or if we had that and that class and spec. But if you just want to get your 15 done and you play with the same friends, then it should be easy enough for you to do.
Yeah. So I'm hopeful and optimistic with Resto Shamans going into beta. BFA. Because by the time most people play it, we won't be in beta anymore.
Hopefully not. Hopefully we get out of beta at some point.
Beta forever. All right, let's do this. I'll press this button and we will talk enhancement. So, enhancement, again, they are master of the elements, except from this time, they're from up close. They are a melee class, or spec, I should say. They as well are builder spender with Maelstrom as a resource. This class builds Maelstrom with various melee attacks and then dumps them with a few other spells as well, depending on the fight type. Single target strength. This class has been terrible on beta and alpha until recently. They had a numbers pass. I don't know if it's just me, but with the recent numbers changes, this class feels infinitely better. The single target I was seeing myself in, I was doing much better than the Elemental Shaman, and that is the complete opposite of my experience on live. I do so much better with my Elemental Shaman than I do my Enhanced Shaman, and I have 970 plus gear for both of them. This class I put very high single target DPS, but there's can be bursty. It can have those peaks and valleys. So I just wanted to throw that in there as a caveat. Their cleave strength, it's medium. It's not great. They do have a few spells that they can use to kind of cleave damage onto another target, but it's not like other classes that you would see that are high cleave strength classes. Their AoE, it's high, but in small burst windows. Outside of those windows, if it's a high sustained deep AoE encounter, they're going to fall probably medium to lower end of the pack. Their target swapping is going to be high. They don't have a lot. They don't have a lot of dots they put on targets. They can pretty much plus with their mobility, they can swap targets fairly easily. Their mobility, again, this one I've listed despite the medium to high mobility. The other two specs, I put this one as high because they have a couple of talents they can take, one of them being a specific talent where they can leap to the target. And so they can go Swolf, and then halfway there they can leap to the target. So I have listed their mobility as high. Their DPS cooldowns, again, they have Ascendance and Elemental Spirits, Sundering, and Earth and Spike. A lot of these are all talents. Other than their Elemental Spirits, which are not a talent, which are their two Ghost Wolves that they can summon in, or Raptors if you have the glyph. But their DPS cooldowns are pretty interchangeable. I kind of had a hard time in my mind. I can usually kind of tell as I'm testing stuff out, okay, this fight type, you'll probably want to take this, barring a situation where the numbers just don't add up. This one you'll take in this other situation. And I was kind of having a hard time figuring that out with this class, which to me bodes well because it lets players have that choice of how they want to play their class, but still compete, So I hope that stays true. I hope I'm not wrong in that assumption. But again, we'll have to wait and see until Theory Crafters kind of put their numbers out and we see how the class performs compared to others. Their survivability, again, this is just, it's medium, outside of the Ankh and the few spells they can take compared to other classes, they don't have the survivability. What kind of sucks to me is the talent they should take to increase their survivability takes away from other things, and so it'll be iffy if we end up seeing Theory Crafters recommend to take that talent. I skipped over this one, but utility, Bloodlust, Stun, off heals, interrupts, Hex, same as we've seen with the other two specs. Not much has changed there. General feel with the recent damage buff and the Sorry, I'm tongue-tied today. With the recent damage buff and the loss of legendaries, this class feels less whack-a-mole and more fluid. However, it still does have a bit of a whack-a-mole feel to it. That is how it is intended to be played. But it feels good. On live currently, there's times where I just have so many things lighting up. It's kind of like, well, which one do I press? This did not feel that way. It felt very, very good. And I did add a side note at the very end there. Like I said, this class has gone through a lot of scrutiny, both on Legion and on Beta. The class's lack of survivability compared to other classes, on top of the huge number swings on Beta we have seen, it has left it in a precarious state, to say the least. Recently, with the numbers passed, this spec all of a sudden feels much better on Beta. I am very, very hopeful and optimistic for this class that it will be doing well out of the gate. For me, however, my likelihood to make it a main is medium. It just doesn't feel good to me. If I'm going to play a melee class, I've got other classes that I'd likely play before I played Enhancement Shaman, despite numbers. I say that because Enhancement Shamans could be the absolute best DPS in the game by a landslide, and I still would likely play another melee class just because I don't necessarily always enjoy that class's playstyle.
Yeah, I remember there was one expansion, and I just can't remember which expansion it was, but I remember I played a little bit of enhancement in. I can't remember which expansion it was, but I remember it was fun at one point. but recently I haven't. It hasn't been for me, at least. I think I have to agree with you that there's other melee classes out there that's way more fun.
Yeah, I actually I mained Enhancement Shaman for a long time in Lich King in ICC, and I really enjoyed it then. I ended up on a Brett Paladin by the end of that expansion. But I enjoyed Enhancement Shaman back then. I have not enjoyed it as much now or any other expansion as I've tried it out. So I'm with you there. But yeah, that's the Shaman class. So I asked Oreo this last week, and I don't want you to give your answer away. But
Okay.
have you gotten closer to a point where you think you know what your main is going to be?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Are we going to be surprised?
Probably not.
Well, I should say, Oreo and I probably won't be surprised, but will the listeners be surprised?
I mean, if they have followed the series, then I don't think they. Well, I don't think so. Well, maybe actually, maybe a little bit. Maybe a little bit.
Okay.
Actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think listeners will be surprised. Because I don't think we've dropped too many hints about what I will likely be playing as my main in BFA. So I think when I announce that, other than a few people who know me personally and talk to me on a semi-regular basis, I think people will be surprised. But yeah,
I don't know if I should downplay it or what now, but
for what
it's fine. Yeah. What I
upplay
mean,
it. Always upplay it. Build the
I think
excitement.
people would be really surprised.
I'd rather let them down on the back end than in the front end,
No, true.
But yeah, so I kind of wanted to ask you a few other things before we kind of ended today's show, Marty. And
Yeah, sure.
you've been with this group that you've been raiding with for a while now, right?
Yep.
You guys started this group in Legion, right? Or
Well, no, yes and no. There's a little bit of a history to it. We actually, a lot of the guys who are together today, well, the main group, I think, um, has known each other since Pandaria, I think. We started in one guild, and at some point, that guild master went crazy and kicked most of the people, and we were like, "Oh, okay." Lots of stuff happened, and we started a new guild that we then raided with through Mist of Pandaria, and went into Walls of Draenor, but then sort of quit. A lot of people quit. They didn't like Draenor, and the guild then sort of died. And then in Legion, before Legion, we decided to bring it back, and that's what we did under a new name. And then we went through most of Legion together. We've had a lot of people going in and out of the raid team though. So I mean, I think it's probably less than 10 people who were there from the beginning who are still there. So it's crazy how much yeah, recruitment we have done in this expansion just to keep raiding.
and my hat's off to you, man. Having been in a number of different guilds, I think it's been 7 or 8 to total from Legion, and I only was in one for the first half of Legion. I've seen it from a lot of different perspectives, and recruitment has been the name of the game in Legion, and I would likely expect that's been the name of the game, especially from a progression guild standpoint for almost the entirety of this game's existence throughout the various expansions. But
I mean, I think what we had going for us though that you didn't have in that guild you were in the first half was that we were actually on a like a smaller server, so we were actually in top 10, or actually maybe even I could probably say most of the time in top 5. So recruitment was a little bit easier. I mean, sure, it's a smaller server, so it's not as easy to. I mean, a lot of people are already in guilds, but at least you can also, in these days, you can trial people over. If you just know that Battle.net, you can invite them to heroic raids and stuff like that. So, and then they would server transfer over if everybody was happy and things like that. So, so it was a little bit easier for us maybe to get new people in when we needed them for you than it was for your guild, because I remember we looked at it and I was like, all right, I'm scrolling in on WoW progress and I'm on page 20 now. When is your guild going to show up? So,
well, we were on the server we were on at the time had Midwinter, and they were still currently vying in the raid race. They quit, contending purposefully about halfway through. But yeah, man, we were on a server that we just, like you said, unless you were already in Mythic and doing well in progression, you weren't going to get the people you needed. But I did want to ask you,
Mm.
So you started out as an officer. You're no longer an officer due to you just various life constraints, whatever. They brought somebody else in who could commit more time to it. From what you do know, are you guys making any changes going into BFA? You kind of sticking things the same? What are you guys going to be doing going forward?
I mean, obviously, I haven't been there for the last few officer meetings since I'm not an officer anymore. So I don't know if they have changed any like large scale plans or anything. But to my knowledge, I don't think we're going to change things up too much. What we're going right now, we're in a phase where people are deciding what main to go for, and obviously the officers want to know if we want to change a role. So if someone who is a healer wants to go DPS, for instance, then that they want to know that. If you're just going from one DPS class to another DPS class, then we don't really care too much. Obviously, we still want to have a sort of a balance, so we don't go in with 15 paladins, for instance. Uh, but but yeah, so that's sort of where we are right now, and I think going forward, I mean, there's also going to be some people who are coming back, um, uh, because some people just fell out of the raid team because they got bored of the game or left or had other reasons. So I think the plan right now is to continue as we've done right now. The people who are there towards the end have priority on raid spots. People who are coming back will have to apply again in quotation marks, so the guilds get onto the team and prove that they still want to raid and things like that. So yeah, so I think that's what's going to happen. But then again, everybody knows a lot of things can happen from now and through leveling and until you actually set foot in the first raid. So we'll have to see as well what happens.
Sure. Well, all I know is I'm excited, man. I'm getting ready. I'm excited to have this next 6 weeks or whatever we have left, kind of travel and enjoy my summer. But past that, I'm stoked to get back in there and jump into things again. It's felt weird not having obligated raid days in my weeks.
It's actually, to me, it actually felt a bit nice. Is that all right to say?
Yeah, man. Everybody needs a break.
Yeah, I really felt like I needed a break. I've been saying it over and over. This is probably the first expansion since Wrath of the Lich King where I've had no break whatsoever. Been raiding all the way through. So at some point, I mean, probably 2 months ago, I was already starting to feeling it. So yeah, I'm really enjoying it, and we've had good weather in Denmark as well, and so it's obviously you want to spend more time outside and things like that, and maybe play some Pokemon Go, whatever, whatever floats your boat, I guess. So I mean, half a year ago, I moved to a new area of Copenhagen in a new apartment, and this is like an area with canals and water everywhere, and it's just so nice to be outside. So yeah, yeah, that's what
It's
I've been
cool, man.
doing, but I am looking forward to something new and a new story, and reading the book does create a little bit of hype. I will not deny that.
Yeah,
So,
man. I just got the book as well. I've been listening to it, so I'm hopefully gonna finish it here soon. But is your group still raiding, by the way, or are they done?
N- not on a regular basis. No. I think it's more like on a week to week basis. If there's people who want to do heroic on alts or whatever, then they're
Okay.
doing it. Maybe even if they have the people and stuff, then they might do some mythic here and there. But I don't really know because I haven't been locked into the game properly for the past few weeks. So uh, I'm not really sure how it goes.
That's kind of what we've been doing over there. We'll put together a
Yeah.
normal and potentially a heroic each week, and so I doubt we'll do anything this week with Tuesday being the day before a major holiday. I know I'll be gone Tuesday evening, so
Yeah.
but I did want to take an opportunity before I hit the few buttons to get out of here to let everybody know. If you are not already aware, Oreo and I have started a Mythic guild on Horde US Thrall. We are putting together a roster. Like I said, I think last I looked it was 27. I could be wrong, but none of those spots are permanent. We are going to start in normal heroic like every other guild. As soon as Mythic drops, we'll jump into that. But if you have any aspirations of being a Mythic raider, or just want to join the TRC network from a casual basis, you're more than welcome to get a hold of us. All the links you'll need will be in the show notes and the description below. feel free to reach out to us. We're open. We're certainly recruiting. Like I said, no spots are guaranteed, barring a few. Like I'm obviously not going to sit myself.
What?
But right. But yeah. So, but yeah, if anybody's interested, come on over. Let us know what you want. If you are interested in joining the group in the game, and we'll kind of go from there. But I did want to, yeah. Michael's saying, "Woo, casual" in chat. He is one of the people who have joined the guild from a casual basis. Dusty has as well, and if Marty is telling the truth about having a level 1 character on a server, we'll get him in there and he can join for fun. And I've got a few of my personal real life buddies who, they're kind of thinking like they're just gonna PvP mostly in BFA, and they've joined the group from a casual basis. So we've got big plans for TRC.
And if you want to hear about the PvP changes, then the Blue Recluse just talked about it today on the show, and it will be out later tonight.
Yeah. Dan's saying me 3 as well. So I did want to take a second before we got here to thank you, those of you in chat, Dan, Michael, those of you others that are in there. Thanks for stopping by. For anybody who hasn't been in the chat yet or was unable to make it today, just a friendly reminder, we record the show live on Twitch every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Central Time. You're more than welcome to come over. We encourage it. We love to hear from you guys. We love to have an active listener base during the show. Ask us questions. Tell us we're wrong. Say stupid things in chat. It's whatever, So come on over. Let us know. But other than that, I don't really have much else to say this week. Marty, do you?
No, I think we covered everything you wanted to cover. So
Cool.
Why drag it out? Let me go to bed.
Right. Yep. Also, very soon, Marty, myself, and a few others will have some exciting projects we'll be able to announce. So look forward to that. That being said, guys, we will talk to you next week. Oreo will be back. We've finished out the last 2 classes, which are Warrior Hunter. Right? No, not Warrior Hunter. Monk and Hunter. We already did Warrior. Duh. Stupid me. But I'm going to hit these 2 buttons. We're going out of here. We'll talk next week, guys. See ya. You guys want to find Marty, you can find him over at the Blizzard podcast he does, where they talk all things Blizzard games, the Blue Recluse. If you want to find him on Twitter, you can find him at Unamathil. For me, guys, if you want to find me and personally, you can find me over on my Twitch and Twitter, which are both at Mega Irish Gaming, or you can find me on my All Things Blizzard podcast, which I do with my good friend Dusty Porter, the Blizzard Umbrella. If you want to find us here on the show, you can find us at our Twitter account, which is at _TRC podcast, or you can find us on our email, theraidersconfessional@gmail.com, no apostrophe on the S. That being said, guys, Dusty, take us out of here, my man. See ya.
Sorry, I died. Was I supposed to stand in the green puddles or the orange ones?
Hey, get together over there, bud.
This show has been hosted by Dragon Powered Studios, and the intro and outro has been brought to you by Thankful Cow Solutions.
Moo.